And now here's part 2 of our episode.
Just for your reference, for everyone's reference, listeners, when Joni Mitchell pulled her music from Spotify in January 2022, she did write this on her website. She said, quote, "Irresponsible people are spreading lies that are costing people their lives. I stand in solidarity with Neil Young and the global scientific and medical communities on this issue," end quote. So there you go.
To the point, girl.
Yeah.
She just got
Joni.
out. Just said what was necessary.
Yeah, she knows how to use words.
She really freaking does.
Better than all of us, I think.
I have a few questions for you, Kels, about sort of like now zooming out of just this album for a moment and saying like, are you, so now as Joni Mitchell exists in your life, you know a great deal about her, and we love that you came prepared to make a case. It's a sign of respect and love. Feel that.
Oh yeah, baby.
But I also wonder, like, what do you think of her other albums? Do you have a particularly strong relationship to any of her other albums? Because they get nutty after this. After Blue, like that's when she goes crazy. Shadows and Light. I don't know if you listened to that one, but that's an amazing album with Pat
Shadows and Light.
Yeah.
Now this is an interesting question because I think Blue is the only album that I know of hers that I know as an album. That know as a particular set of songs together. So I would have trouble answering that because I'm not sure what album. Well, of course, both sides now. She didn't originally record that herself, but like, I don't know what album that's on. I don't know what album Chelsea Morning is on. I don't, you know what I mean? So things get a little fuzzy for me. And I think her music specifically should be enjoyed per album, the way she set it up, the way she's released it. But you know, I'm not perfect.
No, you're not. Nor need you be. That is certainly not a requirement.
There's a track, I don't know if you've heard, is that she released it on when she released her Hits and Misses collection.
I did.
And the first track on the hits is, I think it's called Urge for Going, which never made it onto any of her studio albums, but I think this might have been one of the albums that it was potentially going to be on. I mean, I think that's not my introduction to Joni Mitchell. I think my introduction to Joni Mitchell was probably the song "The Circle Game," which someone where I went to college, someone made a show that sort of centered around that song, and so that was probably my first introduction to her. And then, of course, you know, she's sampled in a Janet Jackson song, and another artist we've talked about here on the pod. And so I think like Joni approved that too, because I don't think she lets that happen very often. But she
seems to run a tight ship as far as her estate is concerned.
But I mean,
legacy.
But I mean the way it's used in that particular Janet Jackson song. I mean, it's no wonder why Joni Mitchell would say, "Yes, of course, Janet Jackson, you can do this with my song."
Right.
How do you guys feel about River being a Christmas song?
I was going to ask you this. River's totally a Christmas song. It's totally a Christmas song. Yes. Sarah McLachlan does a cover of it on her Christmas album. That is sublime. That is a mainstay in our house.
But are we going to put Sarah McLachlan up as an authority on Christmas?
No, but she's up there.
Wait, what? Okay, say more
words.
Words.
She's close to being up there.
I'm surprised that you don't know that it is a Christmas song. Because my question wasn't even, do you consider it a Christmas song? It was, what are your thoughts on it having become a Christmas song? Because I think it has become that. Obviously, agreed. I don't know if that's the original intention, although Jingle Bells is sampled in the song.
Jingle Bells is sampled, and also this is a conversation you could have about Die Hard as well, you know, about Die Hard being a Christmas movie. It's like, just because it happens at Christmas, is it a Christmas movie? That's the question. But she mentions Christmas. She says it's coming on Christmas. People are putting up trees, you know, the whole thing, singing songs of joy and peace. So it's like, it's absolutely, if it wasn't meant to be a Christmas song, then this is a gigantic troll over the generations that it has become one anyway. Yeah.
I'm looking at the lyrics here though, as they go on further. And this, I mean, I know there are a lot of questionable Christmas songs out there. I think sometimes people consider Baby It's Cold Outside to be a Christmas song, and that's got some questionable stuff going on. But
oh, you've got like standards and practices for what is eligible as a Christmas song, Michael.
Is there a manual I'm not aware of?
Yeah, there has to be.
No, but you've written it, I think.
We'll have to write it. We will. Yeah, that'll be a thing.
Go on with the lyrics. I'm curious. So you were reading the lyrics saying...
Yeah, I'm reading them here. Hold on, let me just have it. Don't still here. It stays pretty good. I'm going to make a lot of money, then I'm going to quit this crazy scene. I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I wish I had a river so long I would teach my feet to fly. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I made my baby cry. Like, is it... I don't know. Just the fact that the song starts out by saying it's coming on Christmas, they're cutting down trees. I don't know that this is really a Christmas song to me. I mean, I wouldn't... I don't know. Maybe I've got the hot take here. I'm not sure, but...
So she's the skater in River. She is, or wishing to be an ice skater. And in another, this song is supposedly written about her relationship with Graham Nash. From Crosby, Stills and Nash. And in another song, and I'm going to forget the title right now, that she also sings about Graham, she says that he's married a figure skater. And I just think that's interesting.
Oh,
okay.
He did get remarried right around that time. I don't know if she's actually a figure skater, but I like that sort of callback.
And I also think I could see a world where she just wrote it at Christmas time. You know, it was like that was the environment she was in, and she was telling the story about leaving Graham, but it just so happened to be a Christmas song as well.
I think it is a Christmas song, but shouldn't be. And that's because if you're listening, if you're in the car and you're parked outside the freaking nail salon next to the Jewel Osco or something, and you're just minding your damn business, listening to Christmas radio, and River comes on, I have a problem with that. I'm turning it off right away because I'm not in a state or a place to be listening to River. So it's coming without my consent.
Yes.
I only consent to listen to
You're right.
the regular, typical, I don't have to feel or think very hard Christmas stuff. And so when it catches you off guard at Christmas time, I think that's
bad.
Yeah, it's gonna be your face is gonna be wet. I mean, I can't listen to River without crying. So I just think it doesn't. It's inappropriate. It doesn't belong on the radio, on Christmas
750
radio.
points for saying River shouldn't be a Christmas song. Okay,
but is
in spite of everything. What about some other songs in this album? There's we're going to stay away from one of them that is your standout. But was there anything we wanted to talk about? Any specific songs here? Please
I
go
have
into
a question
it.
for you guys, and I also have an answer.
Great.
Are there any songs on this album that you think are bangers? And by that, I mean that you can listen to routinely, because I do find that I can't listen to a lot of these songs routinely.
Right.
Like over and over.
That's a very good question. I do think there are a couple bangers, and I'm going to put a definition on banger in a very specific instance.
Okay.
I think that I've been working in places like coffee shops and gyms and stuff like that, where there is constant music going on. There's like a constant, you forget about it until you leave, and you're like, oh, I've had sound assailing me for the last, however many hours. But then, especially at coffee shops, stuff like this comes up. And when this comes up, like if I hear All I Want, if I were to hear that on my, or Big Yellow Taxi, I know Big Yellow Taxi's not on this album, but like saying for Joni Mitchell in general, those songs bang. Those songs bang when you hear them. They make you feel different. That yes, I think I could listen to that, a few of these songs a lot.
I'm surprised that you say All I Want.
That was actually going to be the song.
That's a melancholy song to me. Really?
That was going to be the same song I was going to say too. Well, but she disguises the melancholy with that guitar. I mean, it's just because it sounds like it sounds kind of exciting. Yeah. And also there's like a weird dissonance at the beginning as you're kind of waiting for it to resolve, and then when it does, and then her voice comes in, it's just so satisfying. So even though
very much,
I mean, also she's singing a lot of the lyrics, and they're like things the things she wants. Like the one that always sticks with me is it was just I want to shampoo you. Like it rhymes, but it's also it's so specific, and it's So I would echo that Tyler's nomination of All I Want as a banger. I think Carrie also, but Carrie is also sort of. If there were a pop track from this album, it's Carrie.
Carrie's my banger. Like I could just listen to Carrie whenever, wherever, going wherever. Like I feel like a lot of these other songs, like I have to be in a particular headspace. Like I can't just like be running out the door, going to a meeting, and like be playing. But I could be playing Carrie, and that would be why it's a banger to me. I find it fun. I do feel like it's the pop song on this album, Michael. I do. I think you're right about that.
Carrie bangs. You get 50
but All I Want has
bangs.
no discernible chorus, you guys.
I know.
I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I mean,
I'm okay with that.
We both love Radiohead, so like it's
okay, sure.
That doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
And to go back to her voice for a second, I do feel like, man, there's always something. It's just like she gives you permission as a listener to be like to embrace the chaos of it too. Like she's so flexible. She has such dexterity, flexibility with it. It's amazing how you feel like it could fall apart at any moment, but it's hanging on.
You never know where it's gonna go.
Yeah,
ever.
It would always just like on the edge of complete breakdown.
I also think that Joni's music, particularly on this album, is like distinctly feminine to me. How do you guys feel about that? Do you see that?
Follow-up question.
Yeah,
how do you define feminine in this case?
Well, I'm just thinking in qualities. So I'm thinking like that there's not a lot of structure, both, as you were saying, Tyler, with her vocal performance, but also in that, like I was just kidding that All I Want doesn't have a chorus. I mean, there's not like a set structure. Every song is a little bit different. I associate that with like a femininity, and I don't mean like genders. I just mean like the core, like the qualities. And obviously, just the flexibility, the meanderingness, this like almost like moon quality, this like very unfinished, very emotional quality.
Moon quality. Hell yeah. 200 points for that. I definitely feel that. It's interesting you make this point about femininity because on a recent episode, we talked to Lucy Blehar about Arctic Monkeys, and I had a take where I felt like I felt a lot of masculinity from them. And I think both Michael and Lucy sort of like disagreed with me on that, which I was glad. I was glad because it's so hard in the way that we understand femininity and masculinity, and I think the way that we're continuing to, there is so much that can be encompassed in that. And so I think to acknowledge the feminine in Joni Mitchell's, I don't want it to be reductive to even say it. No. I want it to be like she encompasses so much of this thing that we call femininity and this thing that we're all experiencing all the time.
In her life, she rejected so much of what was expected of a woman at that time. I mean, the absolute trauma of getting pregnant, at 19 or whatever, unwed. I mean, it was like she later talks about it being like, it was akin to murder. It was like my number one priority was keeping it from my parents. Like it was a huge deal then. So, she rejected it that way and never wanted to get married. Actually, Graham Nash wanted to marry her. Sources differ on whether he proposed or not, but she was very against like traditional roles that women were supposed to fulfill. But yet I do feel that this sort of cyclical nature in bendiness in her music, which I think is interesting.
Well, I think also too, I mean, something, and this, I'm about to make kind of a broad generalization here, listeners, so go with me for a second here. But I remember in grad school coming to this sort of observation that a lot of the plays that I was reading that were written by, cis-het white male playwrights all seemed to accomplish a certain thing. Like they sort of, they adhered to a specific storytelling arc. There was always, it felt like you could kind of chart it all out. And I found myself drawn more to plays that were not written by cis het white men. I mean, of course, I directed some, but I was always more intrigued by the other ones, by the Carol Churchills or the Sheila Callahans of the world, people who aren't afraid to make a mess and sort of leave things unfinished and let the listener or the reader or the audience or the performer, whoever's taking it in, come to some sort of interpretation, because there isn't one clear, direct, correct path. And so, I mean, in that respect, I can totally agree with what you're saying about the sort of, I guess, femininity of this album.
Yeah, like loose beginnings and endings, as impactful as they are. Yeah, like it definitely goes somewhere, but it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't have that structure, there's no rigidity at all in any of these songs, I think.
No, I would 100% agree with that. And I think you could also, at least this is my experience, is that I also agree with your statement of femininity here, because it has an effect on me to listen to it where it makes me think about all the women in my life. It makes me feel my mother and my sister and my grandmothers and like you and, like all the people, all the beautiful feminine people in my life who like are connected to this, like maybe not personally, but for me, they're, like it's part of this tapestry of femininity that you create in your head. If you're lucky enough in your life to have great women, which I do.
I just got a really specific image, just thinking about the way we're talking about how she curves throughout this album, like the sort of the narrative kind of curves around. Listening to this album feels to me like you're going on a hike with very close friends of yours, people who you've been vulnerable with and who have been vulnerable with you. And there's someone who's leading the way, and they're not bringing a map or a compass or anything like that. And at various points along the hike, you come to a point and you're like, which way do we go? And that person says, we're going to go this way. And you end up spending much longer on the hike than you thought you were going to spend on it, but you feel totally fine with wherever this person is leading you. And in the end, you still make it back to where you started. That's what listening to Blue is like.
I'm obsessed with that.
I love
cool
that.
And accurate image.
Oh my God. I think you get
so
100 million points too, Michael.
That's 1,000,000 points.
I'm not trying to get points. I'm just trying to make our listeners understand.
The points really matter, Michael.
Well, they mattered when we were talking about Slater-Kinney, all right? Now they don't matter as much for me.
Oh my God. That is one of the, I have very rarely in my life heard such an accurate characterization of a piece of art. Holy moly!
I didn't mean to I wasn't trying to drop the mic there.
That gives me a question for Kels. Kels, we've talked about when you don't want to hear River, and we've talked about how you can hear Carrie anytime. But if you were going to say to somebody their perfect situation in which to listen to this album, what is it?
You have to be home alone. You have to be not sitting necessarily, but you have to not be in a chair or anything. You have to basically be on the floor. I think you should have paints and paper and things. I think it encourages expression of your own. And I think it should be the last rays of dusk. It is a short album. Last rays of dusk just to when it's completely black.
Yeah.
And maybe a window open and everything else quiet.
Oh, yeah. That's
maybe
good.
A glass of red wine.
4 million points for that.
Up to you.
I feel like we should put my description and your description together, and it feels like the perfect way to experience this album.
Yeah. Wow, that's good.
She's also a painter too. I don't know if we haven't said that yet, but I think she's designed and or painted every single one of her album covers.
Yes, she has.
That one, the album before this one, Ladies of the Canyon, I really like the cover to that one. That one's really good. But Blue's a pretty iconic album cover too.
I agree.
Oh yeah,
let's be honest.
She has all of her paintings up on her website, on her personal
I love
website.
That she has a website.
So yeah, just paintings going back till she was like 6 years old. I think she's said before that she's a singer by circumstance, basically, that she actually has the soul of a painter. She just never quite got the skills in time, but that she views herself as a painter almost first and foremost.
So this is a silly question, Kelsey Ann, and we're going to ask it anyway because we ask all our listeners. But when you came up with your list of albums, we said, please choose a perfect album, but we did not define that word for you. So what standards did you use in determining that Joni Mitchell's Blue is a perfect album?
I hate the question. I resent it.
Awesome. Yep.
And I don't have an answer on principle, but I just like it.
Let's go.
I just like it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, that's fine.
We've been told. We've been told.
It moves me.
Yeah.
We're not going to press this because it's Joni
That's
Mitchell's
fine,
Blue.
yeah.
So we're not.
Well, in lieu of that, then we presented me and Michael's standout track earlier. Let's talk about your standout track. Which track did you choose as your standout?
A Case of You.
Yep. Yep. Great song. Freaking great song.
When she came out with re-recordings, that album hits and misses, those two albums.
Mm-hmm.
A Case of You is on misses, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what she means by that.
Yeah.
No idea what her criteria is there, but it is kind of funny, huh?
I almost consider it one of her best songs, like that she ever wrote. Like that's okay. Well, that's funny.
I'm looking up right now real quick. I feel like it's also a very covered song too. Like I think a lot of her bands.
James Blake has a great cover of that.
Yeah, I mean Brandi Carlile.
Brandi Carlile, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which she covered "Creep" at a recent. We're all over the place. But
okay, wait a minute. This is this right? Did Prince cover "A Case of You"?
I believe he did.
I would
Oh my
die.
God.
Okay, I have to go listen to that after this.
My God.
Maybe we'll link that one too.
Oh my God, maybe that's the song we'll play out on.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He covered "A Case of You," although it's a case of you and it's the letter U instead of the
in true Prince fashion.
That feels right.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So why is it this one for you, Kels?
This is a song that's always stuck with me, and I wonder if it doesn't have something to do with that notion from earlier of if you're seeing the singer or the artist in the music, it's of less value to you than if you see yourself in it. And I see myself a lot in this song. And as much as I love this entire album, I'm watching Joni. So it's interesting that she uses that as like a measuring stick, because in a lot of these songs I'm imagining Joni and I'm not imagining myself. And I wondered kind of briefly if it had something to do with the specificity of the lyrics, and that's something that I adore. So it's not, I don't see it as a negative. It's just that, it really puts you, maybe some of that specificity leads to losing sight of yourself in this situation. I don't know. I don't know what that is. But I think A Case of You is so beautifully poetic, and it paints such a clear picture and such clear images, which then the listener puts themselves in. And so it's just always, I just think it's an incredibly emotional song. There's so much heartbreak in it. And when I was listening to it the most, I was going through a heartbreak of my own.
Bless you.
In a sort of like, infatuationship, which I think her and James Taylor were very infatuated with each other. So I don't think that that's a stretch. But this person who is ultimately, we had horrible times together. We were constantly overshadowing each other, butting heads. Like there was only one or two moments of like this extreme crystal clarity and this just like explosive, desire and knowing each other. But other than that, it was just punching blind. It was crazy. But we couldn't stop thinking about each other. Yeah. And this song to me expresses that so beautifully, that like, this probably isn't right. It doesn't feel right. I don't feel good really. But but I could drink an entire case of this person and I wouldn't fall over. It doesn't matter what they give me.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what they throw me. I can handle it. I can handle all of their bad, all of their fear and, you know, whatever it is, addiction, all of their demons. I can handle it. I just want to be around them. But at the end of the day, I mean, can she? Can you? You know?
That's such a good way of asking it, you know, like, you hit all the points about this song too, because it is just one of the greatest love songs of all time, in my opinion, right up there with Harvest Moon, Neil Young's Harvest Moon as well. And like, there's such a the fleetingness of it, you know, like it doesn't feel like this love is meant to last. It feels like this love is just right now, and like the identity crisis that comes with that.
And it seems like they both know it.
Right.
They just can't let go. Right now. Not tonight. Yeah. They can't.
Dang.
My God, the image of sitting at a bar and doodling on a bar coaster and that blue light pulsing from the TV in an otherwise like dark, damp room. I mean, what an image. I just think she illustrates it so beautifully. And the
changes of tempo too.
Oh, yes. And just the I think I guess you were saying flexibility earlier. And I think on the chorus of this song, it's like she's an angel. I mean, my God, the way she uses her voice in the chorus of this song, it's just like, it does feel like she's sort of bleeding out, doesn't it? Like that she's sort of like, that this love is so painful that she's sort of letting everything out, almost like exorcising a demon. I mean, she talks about demons in the song too.
Yeah. Like Greek. It's like Greek. It's Greek tragedy.
It does. Well, it's wine and demons and yeah.
That was one of the things I always liked about theater school is they were like, when something was good, they're like, oh, that touched on something Greek, you know? And
I was my God, what a compliment. I also like the image of being frightened of the devil, but being drawn to those who aren't afraid. And that could be, you know, if we want to make it really realistic, it could be heroin. But I grew up actually afraid of the devil. I don't know if anyone's with me here who grew up religious.
Yeah.
But when you grow up religious, ain't nobody can tell you that the devil doesn't exist. And that's terrifying.
Because it's like, how do you know? Prove it to me that he doesn't exist at that point.
It's like with every other monster, it's like, maybe it's just a movie. It's just a story. Like, you know, vampires don't exist. All these other things don't exist. The devil does exist, though, and you should be afraid of him. What?
At the deepest level, that's
he will torture you forever.
Yeah. So the reality of that, and it's like you know, it's this is just to say, you know, like everybody has their own beliefs, but like I think there is a thing there about believing in magic and believing in the power of like imagination. Like, what is like? I'm officiating your wedding next weekend, Kelsey, and not to get too chronologically accurate, but you know, like what is love? What is love but saying you have enough imagination to imagine that this can be it forever, and saying yes to that.
It takes a lot of imagination, I think. You're married, Michael, doesn't it?
A lot of imagination to what? To
take the plunge,
to open up to the possibility. That you and this person can be on this path together forever.
I mean, I think so. But also, I don't know. Like a lot of people, like when my husband and I got married, a lot of people afterwards asked us, like, "Oh, do you feel different? Like now that you're married?" And we had a very, very small ceremony. But I always said no, and I felt bad saying that. But I also sort of just felt like when you feel like you've found the one and you've been spending so much of your life with them already, that we had this ceremony and it was beautiful and wonderful and memorable. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, no, I don't feel any different because I feel like this is who I'm meant to be with. And this is my favorite person. And this is the person I'm going to love for the rest of my life. And it's, I mean, I guess I've never articulated it that way until now, until you just asked that question. But I think that's why it didn't feel any different, because he was already there. So, yeah.
Yeah, Nate and I have been together for 9.5 years too. So, I also wonder if it will feel different or not, and I'm okay either way. Like you said, it was still beautiful, and you still like enjoy probably the ritual, the commitment ritual. But yeah, I'm wondering if it'll change anything too.
Well, let's run down your points, see how you did making your case, all right? Starting from the most recent, I gave you 300 points for Punching Blind, your reference to the relationship meltdown that you had that was very relatable. I gave you 4 million points for your ideal setting for listening to this album, that situation. 200 for Women Having Moon Quality. 50 points for Carrie Banging So Hard. 750 points for River Should Not Be a Christmas Song. Should not. 100,000 points for the quote that you brought about Joni saying you should see yourself in the song. 60 points for saying she has a fanciful quality to her. 100 points for this album sounding like it comes from a person, not a studio. 400 points for our reference to Miles Davis. Always got to give that one. 333 points for your first listening experience being on vinyl in Southern California. What could be better? 750 points for saying that everybody at your school in California was so foreign and so cool. So with all those points on the board, Michael, and the case that Kelsey Ann has made, tell me, my friend.
What about curly? I thought I got points for saying that her music sounds curly.
Oh, shoot. Oh, you did. You did. I didn't add it down, but we'll say, since I forgot, you get a bonus, 4 million more points.
Well, that's good, Tyler, because I gotta tell you, it was real close here.
It was close.
It was close.
I wasn't entirely sure, but I
don't need to win. Just give it to me straight.
I'm gonna say the unpopular thing, and I'm gonna say I think this might be a perfect album.
Yep. Hell yeah.
I think so too.
No, but and I will say, Kelsey Ann, with bringing up an album like this that is so iconic, I really think you did this album justice. I think, because a lot of people will be listening to this episode and probably like, oh, what's she going to say about Joni Mitchell, right? But I think
that's what I thought when I started this. I was like, what am I going to say about Joni Mitchell?
Right.
I think you did her proud.
Absolutely. You did.
I'm glad to hear that. I hope she feels better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's listening, I'm sure, because she loves Spotify.
Well, Kels, thank you again. You're so good. Why don't we play our guests out on the song that we've been talking about for the last few minutes, A Case of You. Everybody, thanks for joining us yet again. Thanks to Kelsey Ann, and we will see you next week.
Now hop on over to YouTube. Or not. We're just going to keep talking for a few seconds.
Yeah.
What are we going to say? Who knows?
Who knows?